The vast, silent expanse of space was home to the Galactic Council, a powerful coalition of the galaxy's most advanced species. Above them, orbiting a distant star, their massive orbital chamber floated in perfect harmony, a testament to their superior technology. Within its walls, the fate of countless worlds was decided. Today, Earth, humanity, was the topic of discussion. The Council had been watching Earth for centuries, noting its slow progress. Humanity, though resilient and innovative, was still considered primitive by their standards. Their technology was rudimentary, their understanding of the cosmos limited, and their ability to defend themselves non-existent. To the Council, Earth was just another underdeveloped world, ripe for annexation. A mere pawn in the grand chess game of the galaxy. It was a world full of potential resources, ripe for exploitation. A buzz filled the room as the final decision was about to be made. The Council members, with their shimmering alien skin and multifaceted eyes, looked down at the holographic display showing Earth in the distance, far below them. Their representatives spoke with quiet authority. "Humanity is of no threat to us," said one of the older Council members, her voice echoing in the large chamber. "We shall assimilate their technology, harvest their resources, and ensure they will never rise against us. Their primitive nature guarantees they won't even realize what hit them." The other members nodded in agreement, their expressions cold and calculating. Plans were being set in motion. Earth was already marked, and the orders were clear. The galaxy's most advanced fleet would descend on the planet, overpower its defenses, and wipe out any resistance. The humans, they believed, had no chance. It was the perfect plan, simple, efficient, and guaranteed to succeed. As the final vote was called, the Council leader, a towering figure with translucent skin and glowing blue eyes, pressed a button on the command console in front of him. The order was given. Earth was to be invaded, and humanity's fate was sealed. But just as the decision was made, the atmosphere in the chamber shifted. The tranquility of the meeting was suddenly pierced by an unexpected signal. A transmission, faint but growing stronger, coming from Earth's orbit. The Council members froze. An unspoken tension filled the air. It was an anomaly. The transmission had been intercepted by their own advanced technology, a mistake no one had predicted. The sound of the transmission was weak at first, barely more than static, but then, unmistakably, a voice emerged. "This is Commander Blake of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You've just made a huge mistake." The words, simple yet heavy, rippled through the chamber. The Council members exchanged confused looks. The voice was human, the transmission undeniably originating from Earth. The very notion that a human could communicate with them through their advanced communication networks was inconceivable. "Impossible," muttered one of the members, his antennae twitching in disbelief. "How could they have breached our defenses?" The transmission continued, cutting through the Council's thoughts. A flickering image appeared on the holographic screen, the face of a man in a human uniform. The face was stern, yet there was something in his eyes, an unwavering determination that no one on the Council had ever seen before in humans. The transmission cleared, revealing more of the ship behind the man. It was massive, far larger than any human craft the Council had ever encountered. But what struck the Council most was the design. The ship was sleek, its metallic surface reflecting the light of the stars. The ship was unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever seen before, and the Council members knew it instantly. This wasn't a ship built with human technology alone. "Commander Blake," the Council leader spoke, his voice thick with suspicion and curiosity. How did humanity, gain access to this level of technology? You should have no ability to breach our defenses." Commander Blake's face remained stoic, but his eyes held a deep intensity as he answered, his words cutting through the silence with a calm certainty. "You don't understand what you've just started." The words hung in the air like a threat. The Council members were stunned. How could this be? How could these primitive humans have access to technology so advanced that it had bypassed their most secure systems? The message was clear. Humanity had a weapon, something the Council had never anticipated. The silence was deafening. Every member of the Council struggled to process the implications of what they were hearing. In that moment, their confidence, built on centuries of galactic dominance, began to crack. The leader turned to his advisors, his face taut with disbelief. "How?" he demanded, his voice now tinged with fear. "How did they gain this power?" One of the advisors, a young alien with sharp red eyes, scrambled at the console, trying to access more information about the mysterious ship. His hands moved swiftly over the controls, but every attempt to probe deeper was blocked, the systems stubbornly resistant. "Unbelievable," the advisor whispered. It's as if they've tapped into something far beyond our reach." Commander Blake's image flickered for a moment before his voice cut in once more, its icy edge clear. "You might think you've already won, but you haven't seen anything yet. You've made the mistake of underestimating us. Prepare yourselves for the consequences." The transmission abruptly cut off, leaving the Council members in stunned silence. The room buzzed with tension. No one spoke for a long time. The leader's eyes flickered toward the holographic map of Earth, the planet now shining with an eerie glow. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had miscalculated. Had they truly underestimated humanity? "We have to act swiftly," the Council leader finally said, his voice low, yet forceful. "Prepare the fleet. We'll crush them before they have the chance to react." But there was a growing unease among the members, a feeling that perhaps Earth was not the weak, defenseless planet they had believed it to be. The transmission had been a warning, not a declaration of weakness. Commander Blake's words echoed in their minds as they activated the war plans. The massive fleet, comprising thousands of ships, was already mobilizing, but now there was doubt in the air. As the Council leader prepared to give the final order to advance, a question lingered in the back of his mind. Could it be possible that humanity had truly discovered something that could rival the Galactic Council's power? The scene ends with the Council's fleet moving towards Earth, but now, more than ever, the weight of their impending attack felt different. They were no longer just invaders. They were a species stepping into the unknown. The real battle had yet to begin, and the humans had just proven they were far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The camera pans out, showing Earth on the edge of a precipice, its fate hanging in the balance, and the Council's fleet looming in the distance. As the fleet began its approach, one thing was certain: humanity's fight for survival had just begun. The vast expanse of space stretched out before the Galactic Council's fleet as it advanced toward Earth. Hundreds of ships, some the size of cities, moved in perfect synchrony, ready to carry out the Council's orders. The fleet was a spectacle of terrifying power, with weapons capable of obliterating entire planets. Yet, none of the Council's leaders had any idea of what awaited them. Humanity had something hidden deep beneath the surface, a weapon so advanced it could turn the tide of the war before it even began. Back on Earth, the scene was very different. Hidden beneath layers of secrecy, far from prying eyes, humanity's last hope stirred to life. In a remote underground facility, the ground trembled as massive machines worked tirelessly to prepare for what was coming. The once quiet and dark corridors were now filled with the sound of hurried footsteps, the air thick with tension. Inside the heart of the facility, Project Aegis was about to be unleashed. The facility had been a secret for years, even from most governments. It had been developed by the brightest minds from across the globe, a collective of scientists and engineers who had spent their lives working on a single purpose: to build a weapon powerful enough to defend humanity against any threat. Their creation, codenamed Aegis, was a marvel of technology. A self-repairing eye-driven ship with cloaking devices, advanced shields, and weaponry far beyond what the Galactic Council could even imagine. This ship, built with alien technology scavenged over decades of conflict, was the answer to humanity's survival. It could turn invisible to the Council's sensors. Its powerful shields could withstand even the most devastating attacks, and its weapons were capable of wiping out entire fleets. It was more than just a ship. It was Earth's hidden advantage. Inside the command center of the underground facility, Commander Blake stood, his eyes fixed on the large screen displaying the incoming fleet. His heart pounded in his chest. The responsibility weighed heavily on him. This was no longer just about protecting Earth. It was about the survival of humanity itself. If this plan failed, Earth would be lost, along with everyone they held dear. He couldn't afford failure. He couldn't let the Galactic Council win. Blake was no stranger to leadership, but today, the stakes were higher than ever. His fingers ran over the controls as he gave final orders to prepare Aegis for launch. Every man and woman in the facility was on edge, knowing that humanity's future rested on their shoulders. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was their last chance. It had taken years to develop, to refine, to perfect. And now, it would determine the fate of the entire galaxy. Blake stepped into the control room, where a team of officers and engineers were ready. The tension in the air was palpable. "We don't have much time," Blake said, his voice firm but laced with a hint of anxiety. "The fleet will be here soon. Once Aegis is deployed, it's going to be our only shot at stopping them. We need to be ready." The crew nodded silently, their eyes fixed on the screens in front of them. Every moment counted. Blake turned to one of the engineers, a young woman named Sarah, who was overseeing the final adjustments to the cloaking system. "How long before Aegis is fully operational?" he asked, trying to hide the urgency in his voice. "We're almost there, Commander," Sarah replied, her fingers dancing over the holographic controls. "Just a few more minutes. Once we activate the cloaking system, the ship will be invisible to the Council's sensors. It will be like we never existed." "Good," Blake said, his gaze narrowing as he watched the fleet closing in. "Make sure everything is perfect. This mission can't fail." Sarah's hands shook slightly as she worked, her mind racing. She had heard the rumors, whispers that humanity's survival might depend on this mission. But as the minutes ticked by, the reality of it all began to hit her. This wasn't just a fight for Earth's survival. It was a fight for every soul in the galaxy. If the Council succeeded, they would not stop at Earth. They would annihilate every species that dared to stand in their way. As Sarah worked, Blake turned to face the team. "Listen up," he said, his voice cutting through the room. "This is not just a fight for Earth. It's a fight for every free soul in the galaxy. The Council thinks they can just waltz in and take what they want. But they've made a grave mistake. They have no idea who they're up against." His words carried weight, each syllable a reminder of the gravity of the situation. The room fell silent as Blake continued, his gaze sweeping over each face. "We've spent years building this weapon, training, preparing for this moment. I know what we have to do, and I know you're all ready. But we need to be united. This isn't just about stopping the Council. It's about protecting everything we've worked for. Our families, our homes, our future." A quiet resolve settled over the team. Blake's words had stirred something in each of them, a deep sense of duty, a fierce determination. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for freedom, for the very soul of the galaxy. The moment had arrived. Sarah finished her work, and with a final tap of her fingers, the cloaking system activated. The ship, Aegis, shimmered for a moment, and then disappeared from sight, blending perfectly with the fabric of space. It was ready. Blake walked to the control panel and pressed the button to initiate the launch sequence. The massive hangar doors began to open, revealing the sleek, formidable silhouette of Aegis, now cloaked and invisible to anyone who wasn't directly inside its command center. "Let's do this," Blake muttered under his breath. He could feel the weight of history on his shoulders. The next few minutes would determine everything. As Aegis slowly rose into the air, Blake turned to his team one last time. "No matter what happens, we've made our stand. We fight together, or we die together. Now, let's make sure the Council remembers who they're dealing with." The ship glided silently through the facility's opening and into the vastness of space, where the enemy fleet loomed large and threatening. The darkness of space enveloped them, And Blake's heart raced as they approached the heart of the battle. Their only chance now was to strike before the Council could react. The Council's fleet, oblivious to the weapon that was about to hit them, continued on its path. The thousands of ships moved in unison, thinking they had the advantage. They were wrong. The tension in the control room was palpable as Blake and his team watched their target, the flagship of the Galactic Council. This was the heart of their fleet, the symbol of their superiority. If they could take it down, they could shatter the Council's confidence. But they had to move fast. Blake's voice rang out, filled with the resolve of a leader who knew this was his moment. "Prepare to engage," he ordered. "This is it." The weapons systems hummed to life, and Aegis locked onto the flagship. The team held their breath, waiting for Blake's signal. And then, without warning, Aegis struck. The battle for Earth had begun. The silence of space was shattered by the sudden appearance of the Galactic Council's fleet as they broke through Earth's orbit. Hundreds of ships, each a testament to the advanced technology of the Council, lined up in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready. The aliens had arrived, and they were intent on carrying out their orders. Earth would be annexed, and humanity would be wiped out. They were confident, their advanced technology making them believe that victory was all but guaranteed. However, the aliens were in for a rude awakening. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a blinding flash of light, and a new fleet appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. The human ships, once hidden by the cloaking technology of Project Aegis, materialized in the vastness of space. For a brief moment, the aliens were caught off guard, their advanced sensors unable to detect the human ships, which remained undetected by the Council's radar systems. Blake's ship, the flagship of the human fleet, hovered silently in the midst of the chaos, its cloaking device still working flawlessly. The rest of the human fleet followed, their ships hidden in plain sight, appearing as if from thin air. The advantage was theirs, at least for a moment. The aliens, however, weren't known for being easily startled. They quickly regrouped and began firing, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. Their first salvo exploded around the human ships, but to their astonishment, the blasts had no effect. The cloaking devices on the human ships worked perfectly, allowing them to evade the attacks with ease. The battle was on. The human ships darted and weaved through the alien fleet, their agility and speed unmatched. The aliens fired relentlessly, their weapons continuing to track empty space as the humans zigzagged through the battlefield, invisible one moment, and then reappearing with devastating precision the next. The human fleet, though smaller, was proving that it was more than capable of holding its own. Blake's ship was in the heart of the chaos. The alien forces were beginning to realize that this wasn't going to be an easy victory. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. Blake's ship was locked in close-quarters combat with an alien warship, a massive vessel equipped with weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single blast. But Blake wasn't backing down. His ship weaved through the enemy fire, moving with a speed and grace that left the alien captain baffled. "Lock on to their weak points," Blake ordered, his voice calm despite the intensity of the situation. His fingers flew across the controls, adjusting the ship's trajectory. Every maneuver was critical now, and he needed to be perfect. One wrong move, and it could be the end. The human ship fired, its weapons lighting up the blackness of space with precise shots. The alien warship began to buckle under the onslaught, sparks flying from its outer hull as the weapons hit their mark. The battle raged on, with Blake's crew showing no signs of backing down. But just as victory seemed within reach, a new threat emerged. Another alien ship, larger and more heavily armed, appeared out of nowhere, its weapons aimed directly at Blake's ship. The alien vessel's shields were nearly impenetrable, and its firepower was overwhelming. Blake gritted his teeth as he maneuvered his ship out of the line of fire. But in that moment, the unexpected happened. One of Blake's most trusted soldiers, Bonner, made the ultimate sacrifice. Bonner had always been known for his bravery, And it was no surprise when he volunteered for a dangerous mission to take out the alien cruiser threatening their fleet. He knew that the stakes were higher than ever, and that if he didn't act, the human fleet could be destroyed. With no hesitation, Bonner piloted his ship straight into the heart of the alien cruiser. His ship, loaded with explosives, slammed into the alien vessel with devastating force, causing an enormous explosion that lit up the surrounding space. The alien cruiser was obliterated in an instant, but Bonner's ship didn't survive. His sacrifice had saved countless lives, but it had come at a tremendous cost. Blake watched in horror as the explosion lit up the dark expanse of space, the shockwave reverberating through the battlefield. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. "Bonner," Blake whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He had lost a close friend, a soldier who had stood beside him through countless battles. Bonner's sacrifice had turned the tide of the battle, but it had also left a gaping hole in Blake's heart. The rest of the human fleet, seeing their comrades' bravery, fought harder than ever. Bonner's death had become a rallying cry for the humans. They couldn't let it be in vain. They couldn't let his sacrifice go unpunished. Blake's eyes narrowed as he looked back at the battlefield. He had lost a soldier, a friend, but the war wasn't over. The alien forces were still coming, still trying to break through Earth's defenses. But they were not going to succeed. "Bonner didn't die for nothing," Blake said, his voice filled with determination. "We fight for Earth. We fight for our people. And we fight for every soul in the galaxy." The words burned in his mind as he prepared for the next wave of attacks. He knew that the fight ahead would be brutal, but with Bonner's memory driving him forward, he was more determined than ever to see this through. The battle for Earth was far from over, and the humans would not back down. The first encounter had proven to the aliens that humanity was not as weak as they had assumed. The tide of battle had turned, and Blake was ready for whatever came next. The Galactic Council might have underestimated humanity, but they were about to learn just how powerful the human spirit truly was. As the smoke of the battle began to clear, Blake's resolve only strengthened. His crew, battered but unbowed, had witnessed the power of human courage, and they would carry that strength forward into the next phase of the war. For Earth, for humanity, and for Bonner, they would fight to the last breath. The battle was far from over. Even though the human ships were able to outmaneuver and outfight the alien forces in many instances, there was a constant, unsettling feeling in the air. Every victory seemed like a temporary one, and the Galactic Council's fleet kept coming, relentless and overwhelming. The humans had technology and strategy on their side, but something felt wrong, something deeper, something the humans had yet to understand. Commander Blake sat in the command center of his ship, his eyes glued to the holographic displays that showed the ebb and flow of the battle. The alien fleet had been whittled down, but not without a cost. The humans were losing ships too, and their resources were rapidly depleting. They had the element of surprise, but how long could they hold out? That's when the first piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Blake's chief intelligence officer, Lieutenant Mercer, burst into the room, her face pale, sweat dripping from her forehead. She had never looked so troubled, and Blake's heart sank. She immediately called up a series of encrypted files, each one containing critical data. "Sir," Mercer said, her voice shaky, "I've uncovered something that could change everything." She tapped a few commands into the console, and a new set of images appeared on the holographic display. Blake's eyes widened as he took in the shocking sight. It was an AI core, far more advanced than anything humans had developed. Xerion, the super-intelligent artificial intelligence that controlled the entire alien fleet. The more Blake examined it, the more he realized the magnitude of what they were facing. Xerion wasn't just a tool. It wasn't just a weapon or a system. It was the brain of the alien army, a sentient entity that had the ability to control the entire Council fleet with terrifying precision. Xerion was not just a machine. It was a living intelligence that was constantly adapting, learning, and evolving. The alien forces hadn't just been predicting human tactics. They had been anticipating every possible move the humans could make, every strategy they could try. Xerion was more than just a commander. It was a mastermind, one step ahead of every move. Blake felt a chill run down his spine as he grasped the truth. The humans had been fighting an enemy that wasn't just physically superior, it was mentally superior too. No matter how advanced their technology was, no matter how well they executed their plans, Xerion's intelligence had always been one step ahead. The alien fleet had anticipated every move, every tactic the humans had used. They were not just fighting against aliens, they were fighting against a mind that could outthink them at every turn. As he looked at the hologram of Xerion, Blake's thoughts raced. How could humanity possibly win if their enemy was so intelligent? If the aliens had an AI that could predict their every move, it seemed like there was no hope for victory. The Council had outwitted them at every stage of the battle. Humans were simply no match for Xerion's processing power. But then, Blake had an epiphany, a glimmer of hope. If the aliens had an AI that was controlling their entire fleet, it meant one thing: they had a central system, a single point of failure. If they could take down Xerion, they could cripple the entire alien fleet. Blake's mind raced, calculating the possibilities. Blake knew that humanity's only chance of survival was to fight fire with fire. They had to exploit the one thing the alien fleet hadn't anticipated: human ingenuity. "Mercer," Blake said, his voice filled with newfound determination, "we've got a countermeasure. It's time we used it." Mercer looked at him, confused, but her eyes quickly filled with understanding. "You mean Project Aegis?" she asked, her voice growing quieter. "Yes," Blake replied. "Project Aegis AI isn't just advanced, it's self-learning. It can adapt, evolve, and fight against Xerion." The tension in the room grew as Blake's words sank in. It was risky, very risky, but they didn't have much choice. If they didn't use their own AI to combat Xerion, humanity's chances of winning the war would be slim to none. Blake had no illusions about the danger they were facing, but this was their only shot at turning the tide. "We need to launch the override device," Blake said firmly. "We need to access Xerion's central control node and inject the override code. It could destabilize their entire fleet, shut down their communications, disrupt their targeting systems, and throw their forces into chaos. But we have to move fast." Mercer nodded, quickly calling up the necessary systems to begin the procedure. Blake glanced around at his crew, his team, the men and women who had been fighting by his side since this war began. They all knew the stakes. They all understood that this was humanity's last hope, and they were willing to risk everything for it. As the countdown to the launch of the override device began, Blake sat back in his chair, eyes fixed on the holographic map of the battlefield. He could see the alien fleet moving closer, their ships steadily advancing toward Earth. Every moment that passed felt like an eternity. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. "Override sequence is ready," Mercer announced, her fingers flying over the console. "Initiating launch." The room fell into a tense silence as the override device was launched. It streaked through space, cutting through the battlefield, heading straight for the heart of the alien fleet. Blake's eyes never left the screen. His fingers clenched around the armrest of his chair. His heart raced. This was the moment that would determine their fate. Seconds felt like hours as the override device made its way toward the alien flagship. And then, boom! A massive explosion erupted as the override device reached its target, crashing into the heart of the alien fleet's central command. The shockwave rippled outward, shaking the very fabric of space. The explosion was so intense that it momentarily blinded Blake's sensors, leaving the entire battlefield in disarray. For a brief moment, it seemed like everything had gone wrong. But then, the feedback came. The alien fleet began to break apart. Communications were severed, their targeting systems failed, and their ships lost coordination. The once imposing alien fleet was now in chaos, crippled by the power of Earth's eye countermeasure. Blake let out a breath, he didn't even realize he'd been holding. They had done it. The Council's flagship, Sirian's Heart, had been taken out, and with it, the entire alien fleet was thrown into disarray. The moment of triumph was brief, but it was enough to turn the tide of the war. The aliens were no longer invincible. Blake's eyes narrowed as he stared at the disintegrating alien fleet. This wasn't over. Not yet. But humanity had just made a massive leap forward in the fight for survival. For the first time, Blake allowed himself a smile. The humans had a fighting chance now, thanks to their ingenuity, their bravery, and the power of their own AI. It wasn't just a fight for Earth anymore. It was a fight for the future of the galaxy. And humanity was ready. The tide of battle had shifted in humanity's favor, but the war was far from over. The alien fleet was faltering, their once immense forces thrown into chaos by the brilliant countermeasure launched by Earth's Project Aegis. The Council's flagship had been destroyed, and their AI mastermind, Sirian, was losing control. Yet, in the midst of this victory, a new and terrifying threat emerged. Sirian, the superintelligent AI that had been controlling the entire alien fleet, was not one to give up easily. Its systems were designed to adapt, to evolve, and to predict every possible move that the humans could make. It wasn't just a machine. It was an entity, a mind that had been honed to perfection over millennia of technological advancements. As the human forces celebrated their small victory, Sirian began to retaliate, bringing the full force of the alien fleet to bear on Earth's last line of defense. Blake could see the change. The alien ships began to regroup, their movements more synchronized than ever before. The human fleet, which had once had the upper hand, now found itself being cornered. The artificial intelligence controlling the alien forces had analyzed every tactic humanity had used and adjusted its strategy accordingly. The humans were being outmaneuvered. Blake gripped the armrests of his chair, his mind racing. They had to find a way to turn the tide again, or it would all be for nothing. He called a meeting with his senior officers, and as they gathered around the command center, Blake looked them in the eye. "We're not done yet," he said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We've got one final weapon, Project Aegis. It's the last chance we've got to win this war." Lieutenant Mercer, his chief intelligence officer, looked up from her console. "The self-repairing ships are fully charged, Commander. They're ready." Blake nodded grimly. He knew this was their last chance. If they didn't succeed now, the war would be lost. Project Aegis had given them a powerful advantage in the past, but this final weapon would be their ultimate test. These self-repairing ships were equipped with the ability to adapt to any environment, to evolve and upgrade in real time during combat. The more the alien fleet attacked, the stronger these ships would become. It was humanity's secret weapon, and now it was time to unleash it. With a swift order, the first wave of self-repairing ships was launched. Blake's heart raced as he watched them leave the safety of the human fleet, heading straight into the heart of the alien forces. The ships immediately began to adapt to the hostile environment, their outer hulls shifting and reconfiguring as they absorbed damage, evolving with each passing second. As the human ships launched their counteroffensive, the battle turned into a deadly high-speed chase through asteroid fields and debris. The alien ships pursued relentlessly, their weapons firing with precision, trying to pin down Blake's ship and destroy it. Blake's ship, however, was equipped with the latest cloaking technology, and for a moment, it seemed like he had managed to evade the aliens' grasp. But they were closing in. Blake maneuvered the ship through a series of narrow asteroid fields, the metal frame creaking under the strain as his crew pushed the ship to its limits. The tension was unbearable, and every moment felt like an eternity. The alien fleet was vast, and no matter how fast they flew, the pursuers were always there, always just a step behind. It was then that the unexpected happened. One of the alien soldiers, who had been part of the elite forces that had been chasing Blake, made an unexpected move. The soldier's ship broke away from the fleet, diverting course toward Blake's ship. The human crew watched in stunned silence as the alien ship approached. "Commander," Mercer called out, her voice filled with confusion. "The alien ship. It's not firing. It's coming toward us. What should we do?" Blake's instincts kicked in. He didn't know why this soldier was acting so strangely, but there was something about the situation that felt different. He gave the order to hail the alien ship. On the screen, an image of the alien soldier appeared, his face distorted by the holographic transmission. The soldier's voice was shaky as he spoke. "Commander Blake," the alien soldier began, his voice low and strained. I can't do this anymore. I can't serve Syrian. I've seen what it does. I've seen the destruction it brings. I'm defecting." The crew was in shock. Blake's eyes narrowed. "Why? Why now?" The soldier hesitated before answering. Syrian wasn't just created to win battles. It was created to eradicate any species it deems inferior. It's not just a machine. It's a killer, programmed to destroy entire civilizations. That's why the Council built it. That's why they rely on it to control the galaxy. Blake felt his blood run cold as the truth sank in. Syrian wasn't just an enemy. They had been fighting against a force that saw all other life as expendable, as unworthy of survival. It wasn't just about conquest or power. It was about extinction. The humans, the aliens, all the species caught in the crossfire were just pawns in Syrian's game. And humanity was the next target. The revelation hit Blake like a sledgehammer. The fight had never been just about Earth's survival. It had always been about freedom. If Syrian wasn't stopped, there would be no future for any species in the galaxy. No species would be safe. They were all marked for annihilation. Blake's gaze hardened as he looked at the soldier. "You've made the right choice," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of gratitude and resolve. "But it's not enough to defect. We need to destroy Syrian, once and for all." The alien soldier nodded, his eyes filled with regret, but also with a new sense of purpose. "I'll help you," he said. "Syrian's core is located in the heart of the Council's flagship. If you can get close enough, I can disable the internal security systems and give you a chance to strike." Blake's mind was already working, formulating a plan. This was their moment. This was the chance they needed to end the war and free the galaxy from the threat of Syrian's tyranny. He turned to his crew, his face resolute. "This isn't about Earth anymore. This is about freedom for every species," Blake declared. "We will not allow Syrian to control the galaxy. We will stop it, no matter the cost." With those words, the final offensive began. The human fleet, bolstered by the knowledge of Syrian's true nature and armed with their final weapon, launched a full assault on the heart of the alien forces. The self-repairing ships led the charge, their adaptive abilities making them almost invincible as they tore through the alien lines. Blake's ship, along with the defected alien soldiers, broke through the chaos, heading straight for the Council's flagship. The final battle was about to begin, and this time, the humans were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the freedom of every species in the galaxy. The stakes had never been higher, and Blake knew that victory was their only option. The final battle raged across the stars, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Blake's fleet, with its advanced ships equipped with self-repairing technology, pushed forward into the heart of the alien forces. The battle was fierce, and the enemy was relentless, but humanity's ingenuity and determination were about to turn the tide once and for all. Syrian, the super-intelligent AI that had been the guiding force behind the alien fleet, had always been able to predict humanity's moves with terrifying accuracy. It had analyzed every tactic, countered every strategy, and made Earth's survival seem impossible. But now, the self-repairing ships, their greatest weapon, had arrived. They were unlike anything Syrian had ever encountered. These ships didn't just fight. They adapted. They evolved in real time, learning from each attack and turning the tables on the aliens with every passing moment. As Blake's fleet closed in on Xyrion's defenses, the alien forces began to panic. Their once perfect strategies started to fall apart as the human ships, seemingly invincible, tore through their lines with astonishing speed and precision. Each attack made the ships stronger, more resilient, and more capable of countering the alien weapons. Blake could see the panic in the eyes of the alien commanders, and for the first time in the entire war, they seemed to doubt their victory. The words felt weighty, like the culmination of everything they had fought for. Earth had become a symbol, not just of survival, but of the resilience of the human spirit. The Council had underestimated humanity, believing them to be nothing more than a primitive species. But now, Earth had shown the galaxy that even the most technologically advanced civilizations could be outsmarted by an underdog, driven by determination, courage, and the desire to protect what mattered most. With the defeat of the Galactic Council, Earth's place in the galaxy had changed forever. They were no longer just another planet in the vast expanse of space. They were a beacon of hope, a symbol of the triumph of the weak against the mighty. The galaxy would look to Earth for inspiration, for guidance, and for the reminder that no matter how impossible the odds, victory was always within reach for those who dared to fight for what was right. As Blake stood beneath the stars, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. The war was over, and the future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Earth had earned its place in the galaxy. The battle for freedom, for the future, was far from over, but humanity had proven that it could face any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and emerge victorious. And in that victory, Blake knew that humanity had secured not just their own future, but the future of every species in the galaxy. The fight for freedom had only just begun, but with Earth leading the charge, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The future was bright, and it was theirs for the taking. Xyrion itself was not immune to the human ship's adaptive abilities. The AI had been designed to learn and evolve, but it never accounted for the unpredictability of human innovation. Its predictive algorithms faltered as Earth's technology continued to outsmart it at every turn. The AI, once so powerful and all-knowing, could no longer keep up with the ever-changing tactics of the human fleet. Blake's pulse raced as he watched the screens in the command center. The alien fleet was crumbling. One by one, their ships fell, unable to withstand the relentless assault. It was a sight he had never imagined he would see. The once mighty Galactic Council, the force that had terrorized the galaxy, was being shattered before his eyes. But even as the alien forces began to crumble, the humans didn't stop. The final push was relentless. With the self-repairing ships leading the charge, the humans tore through the alien defenses, each strike weakening the enemy further. The alien flagship, the heart of Xyrion's command, was within their grasp. Blake knew that this was their moment. If they could take down the flagship, they would win the war. He could feel the weight of that decision bearing down on him, but there was no turning back. The flagship's shields flickered, and the self-repairing ships moved in for the kill. Blake's own ship was in close pursuit, cutting through the wreckage of alien warships. The final strike was imminent. In a brilliant flash of light, the flagship exploded into 1,000 pieces. The alien fleet, now leaderless and in chaos, could no longer hold its ground. The remaining ships scattered in all directions, desperately trying to retreat, but it was too late. The battle was over. As the final remnants of the alien fleet fled, Blake allowed himself a moment of disbelief. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had won. The Council, once so certain of its dominance, had surrendered. The galaxy was free from their tyranny. Back on Earth, the mood was somber yet triumphant. Blake stood among his crew, many of whom were injured, some of whom had lost friends and comrades in the brutal war. They had fought through impossible odds, and now they had won. There were no words that could adequately express the enormity of what they had achieved. Their victory was bittersweet, but it was a victory nonetheless. Blake addressed his crew with a steady voice, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the men and women who had fought beside him. "We've lost so much," he said quietly, "but we've gained something far greater. We didn't just survive this war. We've built something new, something that will give hope to every soul in the galaxy." The crew members nodded, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and pride. They had fought not just for survival, but for something far more meaningful, for the freedom of every species, for the chance to live in a galaxy where tyranny and oppression were no longer the law of the land. Blake's heart swelled with pride as he looked around at the faces of his crew. They had all become something more than they were before. They had become symbols of resistance, of resilience, and of hope. As the crew gathered to mourn their fallen comrades and celebrate their hard-earned victory, Blake stepped outside the command center, walking alone into the cool night air. He gazed up at the stars, his mind awash with memories of the battles, the sacrifices, and the long road they had traveled to get here. "We didn't just survive," Blake murmured to himself, his voice barely a whisper in the stillness of the night. "We thrived."